Hi, and welcome everybody. I'm Ross Benjamin from the OSGA YouTube channel. As always, on Monday, my partner in crime is on the other side of me, that handsome gentleman on the other side. His name is Doug Upstone, and he's with DocSports.com. Doug, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Ross. And can you believe it? We got football this week, and got the first preseason game of the year. Not exactly the one that I always look forward to in terms of viewing, but certainly to get the ball rolling. Looking forward to that, and coming off an excellent year both in college and the NFL. I am ready to go and excited, Ross, and I know you are as well.
Yeah, we're going to give you a couple of NFL regular season win totals projections. Doug is going to cover the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to be covering the Washington Redskins. But before we get to that, Doug, let's talk a little bit about the NFL preseason, because I know I've done pretty well over the years in NFL preseason. Anybody tells you they can't make any money in the NFL preseason, they don't do it for a living. Okay. So, and secondly, if I could say anything about NFL preseason wagering, is to bet conservatively. And I know, Doug, you're a big proponent of playing it safe sometimes. And I'm sure that's what you do during the NFL preseason as well. But I'll let you speak for yourself.
Okay, well that's excellent, Ross. I remember. In fact, I believe it to be 22 years ago or 23 years ago. I was just really, I was heading the direction that I'm at. I just wasn't there yet, but I used to hate the NFL preseason. I wouldn't even look at a game. I might watch a couple, but in terms of betting any money, I never even gave it a thought. And so then I thought, this just it's going to be here. Don't be ignorant. Figure it out. And so I came up with some principles. I figured some things out, and I've won 15 of the last 19 years, Ross, in the NFL preseason. I'm very pleased with it. My methods could not be any more simplistic. And I say that with a smile because it's amusing to me how simplistic they are. But you know what? They work. Okay.
Yes.
And you're right, Ross. They're conservative. I don't go overboard. You'll never see me picking 5 or 6 games in a week. Okay. It's never happened, and it won't happen it will never happen now either. So, but there's certain things to follow. Okay. There's certain methods to follow that put you in the best track of success. And if you figure those out, you can make money just like you have, Ross.
Yeah, well, I keep it simple too, Doug. I mean, sometimes we're guilty of overthinking things. And if you're overthinking the preseason, what are you going to do when the regular season comes? You're going to be dumbfounded, right? So you're right. I mean, you find certain stuff that works. Now, I like to look at head coaches and how they do in preseason football. Namely, let's a couple examples: Mike Zimmer of the Minnesota Vikings and John Harbaugh of the Baltimore Ravens. You look at Baltimore over the last 3 preseasons. Of course, they didn't play last year, but I think he's something like 15-1 with the Ravens the last 3 preseasons. And then Mike Zimmer has an awfully good record as well. And, again, that holds a lot more water to me than head coaching trends maybe during regular season action when they go back 4 or 5 years and the personnel has changed. To me, it shows me how serious or how less serious a head coach is at this particular time of year. I like to follow that. And folks, player rotations are very important. Check out our lads. I would say there's NFL depth charts there. You want to look at the quality of depth of each team, because especially early in the preseason, Doug, you don't see starters stay in very long. And the other thing we talked about off air was, how do we handle week 3 of the preseason now? Because as opposed to prior years, they played 4 preseason games each, with the exception of the teams that played in the Hall of Fame game who played 5. But typically, week 3 of the 4 would be the week that teams, quote unquote, dress rehearsal time, which means they played their starters at least early into the second half. What do they do this year, Doug? We have no sample size to go with. Do they do it in week 2, or do they do it in week 3 before the season starts, where a lot of teams in the past, in week 4, which was the final preseason game, they played nothing but players that were filling out the roster and just wanted to get to the finish line healthy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and it's not a simple question to answer. And I think it's only going to unfold. One of the things that there's a couple of things that have changed recently in the preseason. Number one, the amount of information that coaches used to give compared to what they give now is completely different. You used to know that if a guy was going to play, a quarterback was going to play a half, he played a half. If he played a lousy half, or the team did, he'd play the first series of the third quarter. Every team did the same thing. Those days are gone. Now, certain teams, New England is the one that comes to mind, when there was a 4-week preseason, more often than not, they put the emphasis on the second week, okay, in terms of wanting to do well as a team. And that's where the focus was. So the whole dynamic is different. I honestly, Ross, believe that week 3 will be week 4 going forward, is that it's just going to be kind of a nothing week. I think week 2 kind of turns more into it. And the other big change that has occurred is a lot of these teams now, they practice, have scrimmages against, opponents that are in their area. So they, travel up to it. And that's where a lot of the evaluation goes on, particularly for the entire team, not just specific players. So that has been another area that has become important. And has furthered my belief. You gave away one of your secrets in terms of how you evaluate it. The other thing I look for is teams that win or lose by double digits. And this is not always, and you have to be very specific towards teams. You have to consider coaches on this as well. But for the most part, most coaches are tyrants. And so if they, they want to prepare for game 1 of the regular season. So if their team is coming off a bad loss in the preseason, they're just going to be all over them, especially with the position coaches. So they get these guys mad, they get them angry, they come to play. But then they'll go the other way with the passive aggressive approach. If they played a great game, so let's just say, whatever team wins 34-10, well, they might back off the gas pedal a little bit. They don't want this team to peak, going into week 1. They want it just to keep the effort moving. So that's another thing that I also look at, is that teams that win or lose by 10 or more points, and then just put some other factors with it to see, if it looks like they're on the potential or on the rise to face somebody that they can handle themselves with a better or lesser effort, depending on the situation. So that's something else I consider with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, again, especially if you're getting a team that's coming off a win of 10 or more, and then they're laying 6 or more the following week. And, I'm of the adage, and it hasn't held up over the last few years, Doug. But my old adage would be, no team in the NFL preseason deserves to be a touchdown favorite or more. There's just too much uncertainty. And but I do think that holds up. And I have to look at my database, because I do have a 4D handicapping software database. And I'm going to look, and we'll talk about that the next time, how teams do as a favorite of 6 or more when they're coming off a double-digit win. And Doug, those are great points, and something folks should really put in their memory bank. Again, folks, what I would do too, and Doug says you don't get a lot of information as much as we used to, but it's still a good idea to get a couple of the beat writers from each team, and most likely you're going to find out they're going to be able to disclose to you what the team's plans are a couple days ahead of time, meaning how long the starters are going to play, how long the starting quarterback is going to play. And again, folks, I can't emphasize enough, keep an eye on those depth charts, and the teams that are the most deep are the teams that are probably going to be the most successful in the coming preseason. So having said that, how about our NFL regular season win total? And Doug, you're going to be covering the Cleveland Browns. So I know all the Browns fans' ears are wide open and eyes are like the size of the moon. So you tell us, Doug.
Yes. Well, the first thing I can tell you, Ross, is that and this is the most important thing about doing anything with totals, shop around. And what I mean by that specifically, I went to 4 different websites, okay, to look for win totals, looking for the Cleveland Browns. 2 of them had 9.5, 2 of them had 10.5. Okay. So right there, okay, that's an immediate flag that, depending on what you think, okay, that could influence your decision, based on that. So I think that's a very important factor to consider, especially when you have that. I mean, if you wanted to be clever and you weren't really sure what you think the Browns were going to do, you could
Go in the middle.
bet
Yeah.
to go for the middle.
Yeah.
But in this case, no, I'm going to have an opinion. I'm going to have a strong opinion on this one. Now, Cleveland last year, they were 11-5, Ross. That was their first winning season since 2007 and their third positive record since 1999, I guess I should say, when they became Cleveland 2.0 after the former Browns, with Art Modell and his gambling problems, moved that team to Baltimore in 1996. Now, by all appearances, Cleveland has finally hired the right general manager. They have finally hired the right coach in Kevin Stephani. And as it turns out, Kevin Stephani has a little Joe Madden in him. Joe Madden, now of the Los Angeles Angels, because among Stephani's pet phrases that he likes to use is embrace the suck. Okay. So in other words, he wants you to embrace the idea of overcoming obstacles. And that's one of his pet phrases. And obviously it left an impression and made an impression on his team last year. Now, this offense brings back all 11 players from a year ago. Okay. The Cleveland Browns have, I don't know if it's the best offensive line in the NFL, but coming into the season, it's top 5 for sure. Baker Mayfield looks like, in the way he played at the end of last season, he is starting to reach his potential as to what people thought. And the reason that is because there's only so many guys that are far and above, okay, everybody else, okay, that their talent is just overwhelming. I don't believe Mayfield's is that, but he has skill set that he can do a lot of things well. And that is because when he has a good offensive line with a running game, and then then do play action passing, he is he is an elite play action pass guy. And so with a running game like that, I think that their offense could really take off. And who knows if he'll stay healthy, but the talk all around Cleveland, the entire since camp began and even before, Odell Beckham is in the best shape of his life. And if he stays healthy, he could be the player he was a few years ago. Okay. So that's exciting if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. Now the Browns defense, I don't know, Ross, you watched a lot of these games last year too, of course. And, there was always a lot of talk on these telecasts, which I never understood. These analysts saying the Browns defense is really good. I didn't see it. Okay. And the numbers bore that out. 17th overall in total defense, in the low 20s in yards per play allowed, third down defense, and scoring defense. Okay. Now they made a wholesale amount of changes across the board. Okay. And their belief is they'll get better. However, at the beginning of the season, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. So they might struggle some early. But when I look at this team, I see a team on the rise. Okay. I'll say they win the AFC North, and their final record is 12-5. So I'm going to take over. You can take the 9.5. You can take the 10.5. I don't care. I'm taking the over with the Cleveland Browns, Ross.
Very good. And a couple of things. Art Modell, Doug mentioned his gambling problems in 1990 when they moved the team overnight in 1999. And he used his head because he started using Doug Upstone as his sports betting advisor starting in 2000, and things have just turned around in his life since that time. Anyway, I going to look at by the way, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and please take this in light, his name is Kevin Stefanski, not Kevin Stefani, and we don't want him to be mistaken for Gwen Stefani's
right.
brother.
That's true. Yeah,
So,
I
because
did say
he
that
does have a
incorrect.
brother named Kevin. Yeah, okay. Anyway, let's get on to my pick on the Washington football team. I almost said Redskins. Wow. Anyway, I don't know what they're going to name their team, but football team, I guess that's appropriate. Anyway, we're looking at a Washington team. And as Doug mentioned, shop your lines, because I'm seeing half the books with 8 and the other half with 8.5 as the regular season win total on Washington. And keep in mind, folks, again, something we failed to mention is there's 17 regular season games this year. So when you're looking at the Browns at 9.5, like Doug alluded to, they only need to win go 10-7 this year for a team that's stocked the way they are. So I like that pick, actually, very much, as a matter of fact. Washington, 7-9 last year, Doug. Won the division because it was the NFC least. Now, having said that, I like to look at the strength of schedules. And Washington right now, when you look at their 17 opponents this year, those 17 opponents' regular season projected win totals add up to 152. That means they're playing the fourth toughest schedule in the NFL. And keep this in mind. Look at the division they're playing in. Not very good, right? 4 teams last year, all had losing records. Having said that, this is a team that's going to be playing Dallas twice this year. They beat them twice last year, but guess what? Dak Prescott is back under center. It's going to be a big difference beating Dallas this year compared to last year. I'm not saying Dallas is going to win the Super Bowl, Doug, but I am saying they're certainly a more formidable opponent with Dak Prescott than without him. They've lost to the New York Giants 5 times in a row. Okay, so the Giants have their number. And you look at their non-division schedule: at Buffalo, at Green Bay, at Denver, then home games against New Orleans, Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and Seattle. That's not easy, okay? Lastly, guess who's under center for them this year as their projected starter? Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I always liked him, okay? He's hard not to like. He does perform well at times, but at the end of the day, folks, this is a guy with a career record as a starter of 59, 86, and 1. So he's not going to take you to the promised land. He's never been, in his long career, he's never been the starting quarterback of a team that went to the playoffs. Closest he got was in 2015 with the Jets when they went 10-6, and they choked in week 17 at Buffalo against a Rex Ryan coach team that finished with a losing record. So having said all that, 8.5 is their number. In terms of what I'm going to look at, because I'm going under the total. I can get them at under 8.5 and minus 110. And that's what I'm going to do. Doug, any thoughts on that?
I'm surprised you're not buying into the Fitz magic, Ross. I mean, look at all the things that he's done in his illustrious career. Like, for example, throw 5 touchdowns in a game and lead his team to victory, and then maybe sometimes win 3 games in a row. And oh, by the way, then he throws after that, when you finally bought it, he throws 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions the next week and fumbles twice. So yes, Ross, you are absolutely 100% on board. I am shocked they didn't do a better job at getting a quarterback. Okay. They have qualities, okay, especially on defense. You know, that defensive line can be very dominant. Generally speaking, the defense was much improved. They have some talent at wide receiver, okay, but at quarterback, I mean, I guess, okay, we got 32 teams. Fitzpatrick, where do you put him? I mean, he's in the 20s.
Yeah.
And I guess it just depends how far down you want to put him.
I would say in the bottom third. Okay. So
yeah, that's
safe, right?
Yeah. So I agree with you 100%, Ross. If Washington had even a semblance of a quarterback, I think there's a team that could win 10 games and be a true threat to win their division. They don't. Okay. And, you know, in the NFL, quarterback is everything. You got Dak Prescott, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick, end of story.
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind, Doug, that we need to keep an eye on is Washington is the least vaccinated team in the NFL this year. So keep that in mind, folks. They have under 50%, I believe, the last I checked, players on that roster that have had their vaccination or fully vaccinated is
with a coach that's had cancer, by the way.
Yeah. And, you know, in a front office that's, to say the least, they're a mess. Okay. With all the internal problems that's gone on there, an owner who's just an absolute, I don't know how I could put it, lack of class.
Well, you can put it. We just would have to try and figure out how to bleep it out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to be nice here. So in any event, Doug Upstone likes the Cleveland Browns over 9.5 with Kevin Stefanski, not Kevin Stefani, Gwen's brother. I'm just joking with you, Doug. And I love that pick. And I also love my Washington football team under 8.5 as my regular season win totals pick. Again, folks, until the next time, next Monday, again, an MLB free pick on one video, and we'll have 2 more NFL regular season win totals projections. Until the next time. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. Doug, how do the folks find you?
Hey, you can find, well, first of all, you should know that despite the name Upstone, actually have Polish heritage. So this is equal, or this is even more embarrassing that I said his name wrong with a Polish name like that. So that's trouble, boy. If my mother was here, I'd get an earful. Okay, I can tell you that. But no, I'm Doug Upstone with an English last name at docsports.com. Like I said, coming off a big year in football, looking to make you money again, yet again, coming into this new season.
Yeah, well, it's better than what I was doing a couple weeks back and referring to Baltimore's head coach as Brian Billick, who hasn't been there for about 15 years. Anyway, you could find me at rbwins.com. It's there, folks. You pay a little to make a lot. That's rbwins.com. Again, Doug, find him at docsports.com. Great website, been around for a long time. Wade Mosman does a tremendous job there. And he's got some elite handicappers, including Doug Upstone on the other side of me. Until the next time, folks, good luck. God bless and take care.